All right, so introductory lecture lesson on Korea. Why Korea? Political economic development in South Korea, aka Korean animals. World map. Do we all know where Korea is?
No.
That way. Yeah, that way. Stephanie, some people don't know. Really?
Yeah, I saw that in Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we get closer to East Asia, right? Of course, China is the giant. Korea, Japan, East Asia. So why Korea? Geopolitical importance. What does geopolitical mean?
Like where it's located, the surrounding,
That's geography.
the location in relation to the other states, or yeah, that's fine.
Ribbon?
I think because of this location, it must have some political relations to other countries.
Yeah. Political relations vis-a-vis geography, geopolitical. Okay. So if we look at Korea, it's basically between China and Japan. Well, yes. Let's think that it's still unified. Okay. Now, I want to shift to pre-modern. Okay. And this. So Korea as, right? So for China, Korea are the lips protecting the Chinese teeth. Have you heard of this expression?
Yes, I've heard it.
You've heard of it.
Yes,
Okay, what does it mean, Ribbon? Wait, has anyone else heard of this? Derek?
Yeah.
What, Jessica, what does it mean? Jessica?
Okay, like if Korea is occupied by like foreign country that is on the opposite side with China, like China might endanger.
Okay, right. So if Korea, well, Korea is going to protect China, right? Where, from whom is Korea protecting China in pre-modern times?
Japan.
Specifically, when was Japan going?
occupied Korea.
Pre-modern. Okay.
What's the exact question?
So when did Japan try to go after China via Korea?
Multiple. Well, there isn't just a specific one-time history. Like it
Okay, give me specific times then.
I mean-
Multiple specific times.
It's
It's all
Pre-modern. Pre-modern.
18.
Opium War.
Opium Wars? No, Opium
no.
Wars was Britain and China.
No.
Not really Japan and China,
Yeah.
not Korea, China.
Yeah.
Did Japan ever invade Korea to get to China?
Yes.
Yes. Who said yes? Mustafa said yes. When? What's the occurrence? It's either a yes or no, so 50-50.
I know about it because I know that I know they got into China as well, right? And then
Not quite. Not quite.
they ordered to they committed some brutal acts. That's all I don't really know much about it. That's
Yeah, no, pre-modern.
What is pre-modern? Yeah, what is
Pre-modern, basically modernity. Koreans locate beginning of modern period in Korea in 1876, I believe. Opening of Gyeonggi, the opening of ports period. Okay. No? You ever hear of Hideyoshi?
No.
It's during the Ming time. So 16th century, late 16th century, Hideyoshi, one of the unifiers of Japan, invades Korea to get to China. And then what did the Chinese do? They send troops to push back Japan.
All I remember.
Yeah, right? So they go in, invaders are going up Korea to get to China, and then China brings down troops.
Yes.
And some hypothesize that this weakened the Ming to allow for Qing to come in. Derek?
But Korea was like a sub-state to China
Yes.
back in history?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're not
yeah.
independent like nation.
That's not what Koreans think.
Yeah,
That's what Chinese and Japanese say.
Yeah.
Koreans interpret it differently. We don't have to get, we don't have time to get into that, but we can later. Okay. So invaders going through Korea to go to China. China pushes back. What does that remind you of in modern times?
Korean.
Korean War.
Korean War.
Yeah.
Americans go up, right? North Korea invades. MacArthur lands in Busan and Incheon, two-prong attack, push up to get to the border. And then what did the Chinese do? Push down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very much all on Korea, right? Very similar things happening. Okay? So for China, Korea are the lips protecting the Chinese teeth. Right? So it's a buffer zone, basically. Right? So the mainland doesn't get hurt or damaged. Sucks for Korea. But China's still safe. For Japan, Korea is a dagger pointed at the home islands. Okay, what's the opposite situation? Did any time China go after Japan through Korea? No. Come on, we have some Chinese students here.
Even Japan, we won't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You're wrong.
Oh,
Mongols. The Mongols are Chinese. They were a Chinese dynasty.
yeah. They were. I mean,
They were, emphasis on.
What do you mean? This is, we're talking about history. This is on words.
Yuan dynasty, the Mongols, right?
Yeah.
They take over Korea. This is definitely when Korea is a subject state to China.
Yeah.
They want Japan, so they launch invasion from Korea to Japan. What happens?
Japanese deal.
No.
Japanese don't beat.
Anyways.
Kamikaze. What's kamikaze?
Suicide?
World War II, suicide pilots, right?
Yeah.
But it's taken the name from this period. What is kamikaze? Anyone taking Japanese?
Is it when
Kaze is wind. Kami,
it's God?
divine winds.
That's the name.
So, the Mongols cross the water, and then like a typhoon hits.
Jeez.
And then the Japanese feel that this is the winds from the gods, divine winds protecting
No
the
way.
Japanese. So these are the divine winds, right? This is kamikaze. And this is why the World War II pilots, they're supposed to be protecting Japan. Mongols try again, this time launching from Korea and from China. Again, we have typhoon divine
No
winds.
way.
Right? So, but the point is, for Japan, Korea is a dagger pointed to the home islands. The best way to invade Japan is through Korea.
How far is the distance between?
Depends, like if you,
It's like
if
it
you got
takes
outline
us flies like
islands,
1 hour or
flies.
something.
Yeah.
Is it like as close as Cuba and Florida?
Like,
A little bigger?
Closer, you can actually see across.
Wow.
It's like Alaska.
all like the Korean islands, you could like see the Japanese islands
Yeah,
from.
it's very close. Okay. So you can see, right, for China, Korea are the lips protecting Chinese teeth. For Japan, Korea is a dagger pointed to the home islands. For Korea, how do the Koreans see themselves?
Currently, or like before history.
Pastor.
A shrimp on the backs of whales. What does this mean?
So they see
Like
themselves as
unity.
victims.
Mustafa?
They see themselves as victims of two like countries at war, I guess.
Two superpowers.
Two superpowers.
Two bigger powers, right? China and Japan.
And they're
Maybe.
and I guess they see themselves as unluckily located right in the middle of those two superpowers.
Exactly, right? Two great powers, right, conflicting with one another, and Korea is caught in the middle.
Yeah.
So, right, pre-modern, China, Japan. China tries to go, Mongols try to go invade Japan, take over Japan vis-a-vis Korea. Hideyoshi tries to go after China vis-a-vis Korea, right? A shrimp on the backs of whales. So this implies that you don't really have control of your fate because you have these two greater powers. Modern times, right, 20th century, would this analogy hold? That Korea is stuck in the middle between two powers?
For them or for
Yeah.
in general?
Not as much.
They're a superpower.
I would say personally.
What, maybe not the same powers, but
Economic superpower, yes.
about Korean War.
They have North Korea now as a buffer kind of.
Well, one way to interpret, one way to think about the Korean War is the proxy war between the forces of democracy, the good guys, versus communists, bad guys. Where?
Korea.
Korea.
Yeah, for sure.
So the analogy kind of holds too in the modern period.
But does it still hold for Koreans?
Not so much now, but we'll get there. We'll get there, right? Okay. Okay. So why Korea? So just some basic stats, geopolitical importance, size, right? It's about 87,000 square miles, similar in size to the United Kingdom. Okay.
Oh, you mean, combined, okay.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes. My apologies. The Korean Peninsula is approximately 87,000 square miles, which is approximately the same size as the United Kingdom, but 8,000 square miles. Okay. Compared to the United States, which is about 3.7, let's go precise, 3,794,083 square miles,
Wait,
approximately.
Is that the continental or?
America.
Okay.
The United States.
In terms of states of America, Minnesota is the closest size in size to combined Korea.
Wow.
Okay.
And
Okay. Here's a traditional map of Korea in terms of the provinces, right? Note that this is one province, right? Okay. Now, this is a question for you, okay? If Korea was an animal, what animal would Korea be? No, Stephanie, right?
Shrimp.
Where do you see the shrimp? Wait, who said this? Christian or Nick? Which one? Okay, Nick. How do you see a shrimp? Where do you see the shrimp?
You're talking about like actual.
Oh, based off the shape. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll retract my comment then.
Okay, you retract your comment, Kara?
I think it's like a
Seahorse.
rabbit.
A rabbit?
Yeah.
Where do you see a rabbit? Come up and show us a rabbit.
Okay, well, we'll try. Like ears, head.
Oh, All right, so Kara sees a rabbit. Mustafa, what do you see?
Seahorse.
A seahorse.
Oh.
Where do you see a seahorse? Come up.
Seahorse is like bent over.
Yeah, it's been backwards. See if
This is like the bottom and this is like the, you know what I mean? Like.
Yeah.
A little bit more description.
This is the bottom of it and this is like this is the head, like extending the.
Can you like
the
move your
snout.
snout?
It's called the snout.
So this is like the bottom. What'd you say?
The thing is like a snout. Yeah.
Wait,
snout.
I'm not
Up
seeing
there.
seahorse.
The
No.
snout is
That's the head and that's like the.
snout. That's
Snout.
the yeah.
Oh, I see it now. It's like a little reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys never look at clouds when you were kids?
I did.
All right, anyone else see anything else?
Just based on the shape.
Albert?
I see a bird.
A bird. How do you see a bird?
Yo,
That's why I did this.
come on up.
Cool.
Say it,
Come on up. It does look like
See, I told you.
a big map receiver.
Twins. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, do it again?
The head will be here, like a little beak, and then the two wings.
So it's a bird flying like this.
Okay.
That's a really.
All right, how many people see a bird? Albert,
Yeah.
how many people see a seahorse?
Yeah.
Mustafa, how many people see a rabbit?
What's up, Dad? I'm a genius.
I see a rabbit too.
Let's go.
You can see both.
I think it's a rabbit.
That's
Yeah,
a
well,
That's
We got Jeju Island kind of being a dropping, right?
Didn't see that part.
Now, Koreans don't want to be seen as rabbits or bunnies. Or shrimp.
It's like weak.
Or sea
Like
rabbits.
Weak.
Yeah.
Mary? What else? What's wrong with being a rabbit? Rabbits are cute. They're vulnerable. Mustafa?
They're hunted.
They're hunted. Right. Jaden?
Yeah, they had an innocent connotation associated with it.
Yeah, like shrimp too. They're not really predators. They're preyed upon, right? That's because, unfortunately, most Koreans are unaware of killer from Monty Python.
This is I love this so much.
I'm actually.
You never seen Monty Python?
What?
Wow.
It's so funny.
Like school.
The king has settled. Right, keep me covered. What with? Just keep me covered. Too late. What? There he is. Where? Here. What, behind the rabbit? It is the rabbit. You silly sod. What? You got us all worked up. Well, that's no ordinary rabbit. That's the most foul, cruel, and bad-tempered rodent you ever set eyes on. You, Kate. I saw my arm and I was so scared. Look, that rabbit's got a vicious streak a mile wide. It's a killer. Yes, he'll do you a sheep, mate. Oh, yeah? Manky Scots git. I'm warning you. What's he do? Nibble your bum? He's got huge, sharp. He can leap about. Look at the bones. Go on, boy, chop his head off. Right, silly little Peter. One red, two coming red.
Here we go.
Look. I've done it again. I warned you, but did you listen to me? Oh, no, you know. Oh, it's just a harmless little bunny, isn't it? Well, it's always the same. I always shut up and they listen to me. Right.
So, I think if Koreans were aware of the killer bunny from Monty Python, they wouldn't mind being so much associated with bunny rabbits. Okay? So, however, we come back. So Koreans don't want to see themselves as bunnies. So what do they see themselves as? No.
See.
Derek.
Tigers?
Tiger? Where do you see a tiger?
I mean, I don't know how to associate with that like shape of the map, but I know that there's spiritual animals, tiger, like the
Sure. Korean soccer team?
Yeah.
Logo is a tiger?
Yeah.
Okay. Where do you, so does anyone see a tiger?
Not really.
Stephanie, you said tiger, right?
Yeah,
Where's the tiger?
it's not the shape of the map, but it's more like,
No, it is the shape of the map.
is it?
Yes.
Wow.
Didn't see this coming.
Help you there.
Oh, it's all beeping.
No.
Is it not?
Tiger's head. Its tail is like
That looks kind of like a dragon.
Yeah, it's a scratch.
That's a big
Come on, think like Koreans. Where's the tiger?
Oh.
I can see it's like the right part.
The head is.
Look at-
the head is.
The head is on the right.
Well,
It's like the tiger's like leaping, and that thing on the right is like a ball. That's
what's the thing on the left? You don't leave like that.
It's a tail.
But is that like the open mouth?
I need to see it.
Okay, that's stretch. That's stretch. Okay.
I know, but that one. And the head was on the wrong side.
Yeah, that's some astrology type stuff.
That's what happened.
Why they attacking China?
Yes, watch it going after China.
Yeah, not very good either.
It's a big
Will you believe me when I say that I didn't Photoshop this? That I wouldn't spend the time to do this?
Oh, you didn't make that?
Yes.
No.
We know.
Unfortunately, Jeju Island is still lip dropping, but anyway. So Koreans would rather see themselves as tigers, right? And hence we have the soccer mascot. It's a tiger. Why? Why a tiger? Why not a bunny or a shrimp?
Tigers are aggressive, strong.
Matt,
Tigers they're the predators, they're strong, they're fierce, and they're like, basically like the king of like, wait.
Tigers a lot.
That's a lie.
They still
They don't really have
It's
time.
really expert.
but
Yeah.
still, right? Tigers are predators.
Yeah.
They're agents, right? They have agency, they have subjectivity. They act upon others as opposed to being acted upon. They're not prey, usually, like shrimp or rabbits, right? So, this is a fun exercise, but I think this kind of is a theme that I'm trying to get across to you, that Koreans want to be agents. They want subjectivity, they want agency.
What do you mean agency?
To be able to be autonomous, to control their own country, right?
Great.
To not be colonized.
So, as of currently, do they feel as if they're tigers more so than rabbits, or was that also an agent?
We'll get there, but I would say that, I would argue that now Koreans feel that they're more tigers as opposed to bunnies or shrimp, but I think that's a much more recent development. Okay, so again, why Korea? Geopolitical, we did size, we did, right, sorry, these are approximate, not exact. Population, approximately 76 million combined, south is about 50, north is the rest, makes it around the 20th largest, most populous state in the world. In terms of economic, South Korea is the 12th largest GDP as of last year. Compared to the early 50s, 60s, do you know what Korea's GDP was back in
It was,
50s,
it was like 180, I believe, it was around there. I remember, Korea was poorer than the Democratic Republic of Congo,
Yeah.
which was, the poorest nation in Africa.
Yeah.
And
South Korea's GDP in the 50s, 60s was comparable to sub-Saharan African countries' GDPs.
like 183, I think.
Out of like,
200 something.
yeah, it was really on the bottom. So this is 50s, 60s, compared to now, close to top 10. Right? So the question, when did Korea's economy really start to boom? Jin?
70s, 80s.
70s, 80s. Yeah. A good way to remember is the Seoul Olympics.
That's a good one.
When did Japan's economy really start to boom to the top? When was Tokyo Olympics?
64. No
But,
way.
didn't,
Did it really?
Damn,
didn't the article of
Okay.
Japan that, there was economic development after World War II, and now we're in 1955-ish, from 1955.
But it really started to take
Oh,
off in the
this,
60s.
okay.
60s. Japan was again dirt poor after World War II, being a defeated country, right? But America really built them up. How about China? Beijing Olympics. So these Olympics, right, they're really good ways to remember when the East Asian economies really started to boom, if you remember the Olympics. Yeah, Jim?
To me, how does that correlate? Because aren't the Chinese a more powerful economy? Like, as of right now, the Chinese, I'm assuming, have like a top 5 most powerful economy.
Number 2.
Okay, so how, as of 2008, were they not ahead of, like, was China ahead of Korea in 1988, for example?
In terms of size of economy, yes.
Okay.
But Korea, the Chinese, would you disagree? Chinese economy really starts to boom during the early
I would
2000s?
say like
Nineties.
late 90s.
Yeah.
Late
Yeah.
90s?
Yeah.
Okay. They're approximate though, right?
Okay.
Give you a general roadmap. Okay. Geopolitical, economic, right? Cultural creativity. Printing. Did any of you go to,
Oh, I know that.
Stephanie, so you know, Mary, did you go to Korean school? Saturday Korean school?
Not in Korea.
Not in Korea, in America?
Sort of,
Yeah.
I didn't go to Korean school though, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay, what am I talking about?
So the original printing press was actually invented by a Korean inventor way back, like, I don't remember the exact date, but
You don't know the exact date?
I don't. Like
18.
Approximately 18.
1800s.
No, just 18.
But because the world recognizes the printing press was invented by like a German inventor.
Which German inventor?
I'm not.
John Gutenberg. Well,
But-
first of all, it's not 18.
Oh. Okay.
18th century, 1800s is 19th century. It's not too long ago. Okay.
So what was the?
Not
Okay.
Okay.
So the first movable type press is accredited to Korea circa 1250.
what? I thought it's invented by Chinese. So it's like
Yes, Derek, everything good comes from China. Spaghetti. Gunpowder.
that, but
Ketchup.
seriously.
No, but the first movable metal type press,
Oh,
where
metal type press.
you take it out. Okay?
All right.
But the characters are Chinese. Okay. The
They
characters
didn't
are
have like
Chinese.
their language movement until very late.
Later, yes. But the first movable metal type press is Korean, attributed to Korea, but Chinese characters. Okay? Regardless, it's much earlier than the Gutenberg press, which is, I think, what you were talking about, right, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Okay, also, Korean love to play up their ceramics.
What is the thing about?
It's a
Boss.
base ballast. Okay. Koreans, actually, Korean ceramics are supposed to be the reason why Japanese have their pottery. When Hideyoshi invaded Korea to get to China, he took back Korean potters, and they just kind of kick-started the Japanese ceramics industry. Or ceramics. Okay. But yes, Derek, the Korean pottery came from China. I would definitely give you that.
He's got the facts.
It's on Wikipedia. It's
Oh, yes. First, Derek, you know, we have no electronics policies. Strictly for this. So go for it.
For the sake of this conversation, I would hear this.
Okay, so the world's first movable typing process technology of printing paper books was made of porcelain materials, was invented around AD 1040 in China during the Northern Song Dynasty by inventor of Bishan.
Okay, but I said metal.
He did say metal.
Oh, is that metal?
I said
That's
I think he was originally thinking like pure printing press.
But didn't I say metal?
Yeah, you did say metal.
You said metal.
He specified after.
We have a
In the
code.
slide, he said first.
Yeah, metal, yeah.
If it's not metal, it's.
It's China, yes.
Yeah, it's not
But
metal.
still Chinese characters, even though
They
it's
just
metal.
copied it. Little bit.
Okay.
Can you give Korea a first metal one? Korea asked for so little.
Alright, good.
But really, Korea, you know, it's at this time, you know, the way I really interpret this is Korea wants to lay claim to something because it is a small country, right? Jaden, you had a hand up?
Yeah, I know the Japanese are notorious for their ceramic abilities. Is Korea still notorious for their, like, do people go to Korea, basically? Okay, yeah. I was just making sure.
Yeah, there's still a cross-cultural exchange between potters, still. Yeah. However, in the current, contemporary, we do have, we have Buddhist, Korean contributions to Buddhist and Confucian thought. And in the contemporary, we have Korean wave, right? Girls' generation, of course. Yes. And of course,
Wow, TBT.
right? Okay.
How is he doing?
One hit wonder.
He's not a one-hit wonder.
I would say he's a one hit
He's
wonder.
not, he's 100% not a one-hit wonder.
Yep.
In America?
He's American, like, he has a lot of famous Korean songs before Gangnam Style. Like, he has like a lot.
International.
Name them.
International.
A one hit wonder.
Yes.
Internationally speaking, but you can't just.
Yes, as of right now.
Name 3
actually-
Psy songs other than Gangnam Style.
No,
Actually,
we'll give it to Stephanie. In Korea, domestic market, and for some, people that are very affectionate or fans of Psy, not a one hit wonder, but to the vast majority of the world.
I will give you that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so also in terms of technology, in terms of users, Korea, this data is a little bit old, but top 2 to 3 in home computers and access to the internet, talking broadband internet, right? No, really, Korean broadband speeds are some of the fastest in the world.
Yeah, but they're like the Wi-Fi in Korea is like fast.
Yeah, the driver is
Who's faster?
Esports.
What's 5G?
Korea is the fastest.
About 73% of the South Korean population own smartphones.
Compared to like Samsung.
What is this like?
How many people in the US own smartphones?
I believe it's lower, it might be like high 60s or mid 60s or something. These are smartphones, we're not talking cell phones, we're talking smartphones. Android, iOS.
Do both of those bullet points apply to only South Korea, or do they apply to both South Korea?
No.
You cannot. Yeah, I was just wondering.
No wonder. They don't have internet. They don't have
That's not funny.
Let's see, again, all right, this data is a little bit old, a couple of years old, but we're ranked number 1 in internet download speed. The number I have is 17.62 megabytes per second. Average US at this time was 4.93.
They
Okay.
had 17?
Yeah.
That's why we get everything.
It's faster now. Yeah.
It's most places in Seoul, it's a lot faster. Like, you could download a full movie, like 2-hour movie in like 3 seconds.
But no one would do that.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold on.
That would be
Piracy.
really
Leave over to Korea.
That's piracy, but you can, like.
What if it's piracy?
It is
Like,
piracy.
2 gigabyte movie
I mean,
in
everyone
3
pirates.
seconds.
Wait a minute.
Everyone
In
is
Seoul.
I don't know what that means.
In terms of producers, we have chips, Samsung, Hynix, consumer goods, Samsung, LG. Also cars, we have Kia, Hyundai, right?
Suzuki.
Suzuki's Japanese. Mitsubishi is Japanese.
It is,
Okay. So, Korea is really a model of development, right? Especially for Latin America and Southeast Asia. Now, my question to you is, why would Korea be the model of development for Latin America and Southeast Asia? Okay.
I mean, we're talking about how they were poor and like most of the sub-Saharan.
Poorest.
And then now they're almost top 10 country economically, so Latin America and Southeast Asia are very poor third world countries, so hopefully.
Sure, right, they want to develop the way Korea was really at the bottom, it's really almost at the top. Sarah?
When you're talking about Southeast Asia, do you include Singapore? Like,
No, not really. I'm
So
talking about like
Singapore-
Thailand, Vietnam,
Okay.
yeah, Cambodia, Laos, yeah.
Thank you.
these are other countries that, like Kara said, were probably have like some of the lowest GDPs, and that's also kind of a result of being like a shrimp on the wheel of two backs.
Yeah, okay.
Is it also because like there are other like countries that were geopolitically like located with other big countries and before they?
Sure, they also were kind of not more prey than predators, right? Well, why not use China as a model of development? Second largest GDP in the world.
Like our population is huge.
That's communist. Okay. Well, doesn't matter. Still number 2.
But like the starting point is different.
Like, China was really poor.
And I mean the population, like
Sure.
the size of the population.
In terms of population,
Yeah.
China's always had a huge population. How about size?
Huge, like resources.
Resources, right? In terms of resources, population size, China has always been a big country. It's always been a giant, right? Even when it was poor, it was a sleeping giant,
Yes.
right? So we can see why. I agree. Yes. China invented the first movable press. Not metal, but first. Okay. But we can see why Latin American countries, Southeast Asian countries, they're not as big as China. They're not big countries like China. So this would kind of preclude China being the model of development for them, right? Why not Japan? Japan's number 3 biggest economy. Number 2 for a long time.
Like Japan has limited resources on their.
Yeah, limited resources, right? What resources did Japan have?
Water.
What do you get? But what do you get from water? Fish. So yeah, right, definitely. What else?
Natural gas and coal.
Coal.
Natural gas.
Very little. Very,
Did they
very.
not have a lot of
I know
Yeah,
that,
support imperialism?
South Korea doesn't, like Japan has some, because South Korea doesn't have like any at all.
But wasn't the point of like,
Yeah, I know Japan has like,
Yeah.
what?
well, wasn't the point of like imperialism that they didn't have a lot of natural resources themselves, which is why they had to go to other countries to take?
Yeah. They have
Japan is it does have some coal, yes, there are coal mines, yes, but it's really very little. Most of Japan's energy is imported via oil, or they have nukes, right, for their power. And that's why Japanese, but it's really limited in terms of resources. But why not use Japan as a model of development for these countries? Like still number 2, limited resources. So, Carrie, you had your hand?
Yeah, I mean, I know Latin America and Southeast Asia have declining populations.
Declining population? Sure. You don't want, but yeah, okay. Derek?
It's just like a bad example for developing countries.
Why?
Like by inviting others to get the resources. It's not like encouraging the wrong thing.
Yeah. Japan was an imperialist power.
Yeah.
Korea was an imperialist power?
No.
Korea was a occupied, colonized. Japan was a colonizer, Korea was colonized.
So could you compare that to Spain being the occupiers and then Latin American
Sure.
countries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Latin America, right? Colonized. How about Southeast Asia?
Colonized.
By whom?
Who colonized Vietnam? France.
Okay.
What about Africa?
Yeah, what about?
France,
Because they were
I
very
was-
colonized.
They were colonized
Very
too.
poor.
I don't know. I don't know if African nations really see Korea as a model of development. They could. They could. But also, the Dutch East Indies, right? And the British were definitely in Asia, right? So these are all kind of colonized, formerly colonized nations. And so they would feel more akin to Korea being a colonized nation that made it big. Does that make sense? Why South Korea is seen as a model of development? So this is the image of Korea vis-a-vis. My father used to hate this show, MASH. You know this show?
It's filmed right by my house. Or it was.
What?
In
No.
Woodland Hills.
Where?
There's a little hiking trail in like Ventura, Woodland Hills.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You can see that.
So this was an American TV show, and it really showed, set during the Korean War, and it showed Korea as really a poor, primitive country. backward, right?
When was it filmed? And like aired?
70s, 80s. Okay. So that's the economic development in South Korea. We're going to go on to democracy or political development in Korea. So let me ask you a question. In terms of democracies of the world, what do you think of when I say democracies of the world? And I want to show hands, and I want people that haven't really spoken too much. Catherine, when I say democracies of the world, what comes to mind?
America.
America? Sure. America, right? Now, American democracy. How did American democracy come about? Was it top down, bottom up? Bottom up. So it's the colonial, the Minutemen, the farmers, they said, we want democracy. Who instituted democracy in America?
The founding fathers.
Founding fathers. Founding fathers were laborers, working class?
Very wealthy men.
Very
Top
wealthy.
down.
Yeah.
Elite, right? Top down.
Yeah.
I would argue that Korea is one of the precious few democracies that was achieved through the blood, sweat, and tears of the Korean people. Can you think of any others? Because I think Korean democracy, this is what we're going to get into, right? But it's really from the bottom up. In a sense, French Revolution, in a sense, right? Mexico?
Yeah. I believe Mexico. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Because of the laborers had a revolution sometime way back. I learned about Mexico last year, so I'm not really good with the details, but I think Mexico.
I'll take it. I don't know, so I can't dispute you.
I don't remember that much, but I
China?
remember that.
But Taiwan.
Taiwan, Kuomintang democracy?
There was like one authority, but then people fight for it.
I was thinking more like Philippines, maybe.
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting rid of Marcos, people power.
But that was so manipulated by the American government.
America has its hand in many
Instead of being
But no, Marcos was America's puppet. Or,
He was the, yeah.
And the Filipino people got rid of Marcos. People power. No?
I don't think, man.
I mean, like now with Dan, like I guess.
No, we're not talking now. We're talking about getting rid of Marcos. That was people power. Right? What's her name?
Oh, you're talking about the Philippines or?
Philippines. Her husband was the dissident that was killed, and she became the first president after Marcos.
The wife of Ninoy?
Yeah.
I forgot. I know her last name, Aquino, but
What's her last name?
Aquino, Ninoy Aquino's wife.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
So it's really, I think it's the Philippine power that put her in and got rid of the military dictator Marcos.
Okay.
But definitely for Korea, Korean democracy was achieved through the blood, sweat, and tears of the Korean people, bottom up. So we're going to go into kind of a brief history here. So annexation, Hermit Kingdom, Korea used to be known as the Hermit Kingdom. To be annexed this week, Japan's Privy Council will meet today and ratify all negotiations, people being ready to move. Yi Dynasty will be given rank of princes when empire absorbs the country. Yi Dynasty was the Korean, that's what the Japanese called the dynasty. Yi Isungye, the founder of the last Korean dynasty. Okay.
I could argue that the civil rights movement was also from the ground up as well.
Yeah, but I think American democracy was instituted by the founding fathers in the 18th century.
Yes, but the democracy wasn't fully instilled to every constituent of the United States until.
I think
it was not for.
No, I think you can make an argument for that.
That would be a fun paper, but I'm not gonna write it.
Okay, this was August 22nd, 19.
What was the last dynasty of annexation?
Yi,
I mean,
Kim Go-jong.
before the dynasty?
Before Yi dynasty was Koryo,
Yeah, okay.
Koryo Joseon. Right. Yi Sung-ge is the founder of Joseon.
I have a general question before I forget about it. Do we need to have academic articles for the research?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, for the research of this
Yes.
proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, moving back to today's topic. This is the Chosen government general. Chosen is the Japanese word for Chosun, which is what Korea was known as. This is the Japanese pronunciation. Korean is Chosun, Japanese is Chosen. Government general is the name of the Japanese colonial state. This was their headquarters. Now, at the time, okay, so the Japanese colonial state was brutal, harsh, cruel. However, the Japanese were really good imperialists. They knew what they were doing. At the time, Koreans believed in something called geomancy. Have you ever heard the term geomancy? It's kind of equivalent to what we have today, what we know as feng shui. What's feng shui?
It's like energy.
Energy,
In a room.
the flow of
Yeah, the
energy,
flow.
right? So Koreans believed in geomancy, or in a sense feng shui, and they believed, so this is the Korean royal palace, and they believed that energy flowed from mountains. This is Mount Pugak, and they believed that energy flowed from the mountain to the royal palace. Right? So this is the mountain view down, so the energy flows down to the royal palace. So we have a mountain here, energy is flowing down, the Koreans build their royal palace here. Now, where do the Japanese build their government general, the colonial state building? On the mountain, but it's flowing down then.
They are
Right behind the Korean
Right behind the Korean palace?
So it gets, and I mean like, other way. Yeah.
You see, Stephanie, you would have been a really good Japanese imperialist.
So like it's in the way of
Wow.
That's annoying.
That's like
rude.
That's like what's up.
So not only do they receive the energy from the mountain, they prevent the royal palace, the Korean royal palace, from receiving the energy.
How can they still keep that feeling?
This is modern. Oh, so no, hold on. We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there.
It's cool.
No, my Photoshop skills suck.
Wait, where is that? Oh, wait. Oh, I think I know.
So the building, right? This is the royal palace. This is where the government general building used to be. Now, the building itself is an architectural feat. It's beautiful, right? This is the inside. Here's a picture of the dome from the inside. The dome. So the question is, it's a nice building. So in the 90s, Koreans had this debate. What do we do with this building? What are the reasons for keeping it? Architecturally. But why get rid of it? But if you keep it, why not? What's the reason to not keep it?
To remember?
Yeah.
It's a constant memory of Japanese imperialism, right? So, what the Charlottesville neo-Nazis? Why were they activated last year?
They're
Confederate memorials, Confederate statues, right? They didn't want to get rid of them, right? So that's the choice. You get rid of it, you erase history, or you keep it and it's a constant reminder. What do you do? Stephanie, is this building still installed?
I think so.
No.
Wait, there is,
What they
there's
did,
a similar building that looks like that in
they kept the parts of the dome and they put it in Independence Hall. The difference between this is that this is an actual historical building, whereas most of the Confederate statues were erected in the 60s, Jim Crow, or civil rights. Okay.
Wait, are they still there? I didn't even check it on
No, they're still there, yeah.
Some, okay.
So we just about hit time. I'm going to finish up this lecture on Friday, and then we'll move on to the lead reading. Any questions so far?
Statues, man, they're like.
All right, we're good.
Good talking.